Everybody to today's community meeting. As always, feel free to sign in if you'd like. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, please add it to the agenda for today. We'll jump right into things. I've mentioned this doc before, but I just wanted to leave it again as a link. We are working on redesigning Recore right now with a motivation to make it easier to operate and to scale. This is our proposal. Please do take a look, and we'll have a design doc coming out in the coming weeks as well that gets a bit more into the technical details of the proposal as well. This proposal here is more of a holistic overview of what we'd like to be doing and why we're making those changes as well. The other two issues I wanted to mention is a little bit of progress within Cosign. The first of these is a proposal around how to store signatures as OCI artifacts. So if you haven't seen, there is a bundle specification doc that talks about how to store attestations. So this doc is focused on what we should be doing about signatures. So if you're interested in this, please do take a look. Cody, I don't think is here, but there is a PR out as well to start working through this, I believe, picking option 3 here. So this is in the notes if you'd like to take a look over this. And then the other issue as well that I'll mention is this one. A community member proposed when you go to download root.json, which is the required root file for initializing Cosign. This is if you're providing your own tough repository. Right now, we have two options, one which is provide the root file itself, and one which is provide a URL to the root. But the second of these is not a great option. We probably should not have this in its entirety. It's more of a ease of use, but you don't know the root that you're downloading in that case, so it's not really pinning to any file. So proposal is to add a checksum argument. So if you do want to download via URL, you also need to know the checksum of your root. So effectively, you're getting your root out of ban. So I believe there's a PR out also for this. So if you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to take a look. Was there anything, I guess I'll mention clients real quick, and then I'll ask if there's anything else. There was a recent release of Sigstore Ruby that I just wanted to mention that Samuel has been working on. So if you would like to give this a try and start experimenting a bit with the Ruby client, please do. Samuel would, I'm sure, welcome any feedback on this as well. Were there any other client updates, any other service updates?
I thought maybe it's worth mentioning. It was nice to see the KMS spec doc come out from Ramon.
Yeah, Ramon, I think you're on the call now. Did you wanna mention anything about that? And I'll add a link as well.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the spec for adding plugin support to Sigstore, specifically for KMS providers, is ready. Thanks, Hayden, for approving. Bob likes the idea. He hasn't officially approved, but he likes it, and hope the rest of y'all like it too. And yeah, right now I have a draft PR up in the Sigstore repo, Sigstore, and I'll add the link in there too. But yeah, it's ready. If I'll also comment there too. But yeah, if you want to take a look, please do so. It's not completely implemented, but the idea is outlined right there in the description. And we're just gonna invoke plugin programs over CLI, standard in, arguments, and std out, right, and parsing those. And the first candidate we're gonna try is the GCP KMS provider that's already in tree already, and I'm gonna try to make a plugin out of that, right? And also, next candidate is after that is the draft or the pending PR that we already have from a community author for Alibaba KMS. So I'll check in with them and see if they'd like to give this a shot and see how well it works for their provider. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thanks for that update. That's really exciting to see. And I think as well, one of the bits of feedback we've gotten for some time in cosign is very large. So this is also going to give us a way to shrink the size of that binary and start providing some optionality around what providers are supported by default with the binary. And then if you need a version of cosign where you don't actually need KMS support, you can submit that easily. Apu, did you have an update for Sigstore Java?
Yeah, we found a couple of issues in our verification flow. Those are fixed. So if you're using Sigstore Java for verification, please update to 1.2.0. And if you are a client author, please update to the latest conformance test, which adds in tests for these kind of strange cases. That's it, really.
Thanks for the update. Anything else for clients or services? Paul, did you want to give an update for infrastructure?
No major changes right now. Like we did last year and the year before, we're gonna do a code freeze so everyone on call doesn't have to worry about any major issues rolling out. So if there's anything, I don't think there's anything specific in Recore or Pulsio, but if there's features you're waiting on, that will be after January 5th when they roll out. Obviously, any critical issues or bug patches will roll out, but we'll have a feature freeze until the end of or until the new year.
Awesome. Thanks for that update. Architecture docs. Tracy, did you want to take this?
Yeah, there is a PR that's ready for merging, and that's the final architecture doc for the public deployment spec. So thanks, Hayden, for giving a lot of feedback, and Lance, I don't know if he's on the call, but thank you, Lance. But yeah, folks are welcome to check that out. But yeah, we've got a few open PRs which we'll address after this has merged. But yeah, what will be really nice is this is the final spec doc that's been moved over from Google, so we'll officially have them all in GitHub, and we can continue working on them and improving them there. But yeah, that'll be a nice milestone. And yeah, if there's time later at the end of the meeting, I did want to start addressing some of the open PRs. So I put a little agenda item just for some questions around comments in the Recore spec. But yeah, if anyone wants to hang around at the end of the call, happy to discuss that. Okay, that's it.
Awesome. Well, if folks can take a look at the spec, that would be great. I think I marked it as approved and ready to go. So I guess later this week I'll merge that in if there aren't any other comments.
Sounds good.
I wanted to highlight a little bit of progress that we've been making on our documentation. Haley has been working on this as part of OpenSSF TI funding initiative to modernize our documentation. One of the improvements that we made, so this has been ongoing a bit. We did clean up our quick start guide for cosign and did a little bit of restructuring, but one of the big things that we wanted to do is highlight all of the many SDKs that have been written in Sigstore. Cosign obviously is our primary tool for interfacing with Recore and Pulsio and doing signing and verification, but we of course have many implementations across different languages. So this here links to documentation for each of the projects. Our goal, for example, for Java, or for any of these, but I'll just show Java here, was to provide some really high-level documentation for how to use this, and then point directly to the project for further documentation. If you have any feedback, feel free to take a look. And the next thing that we'll be doing for the modernization work is updating the quick start guide to talk a bit more about signing with CI workflows rather than identities. And we'll add a little bit more documentation there and talk a bit as well about some of the package registry integrations where you can also sign with CI workflows. All right. Were there any other project updates? All right. Well, then I'll mention real quick for events. This is actually, I think, our first community meeting since we had SigStoreCon, because we had SigStoreCon and then Thanksgiving. The event went really, really well. We ended up having a bit over 100 people, I think, registered for the event. A lot of great talks, a lot of great engagement. As always, the hallway track where we had to have a lot of conversations during breaks and outside the event as well is always a highlight. It was great to meet many of y'all in person. If you'd like to watch the talks, we have a playlist with all of the talks. Please do take a look. And if you have any questions, ping the talk authors on Slack. I'm sure they'd love to chat more. And as well, if you gave a presentation or if you know someone who gave a presentation, consider writing a blog post about it as well. I'd love to tee up a few blog posts for some of the talks and get those published during this year and into the next as well. And before we go to some of the final discussion points, I'll also just mention 2 weeks from now is December 24th. I don't expect many people to be around, so I cancel this community meeting. And so our next meeting will be, I believe, January 7th, whatever that Tuesday is in the new year. All right, Tracy, or I believe Bob. Tracy, I guess this is more of discussion. Bob, did you want to go first?
What? Sorry.
It's a
Sorry,
roadmap.
I didn't have
did you
anything, so that's why I.
Oh, did you? Sorry. This is the roadmap, the client's roadmap. Sorry about that. I guess Apu, did you want to mention this?
Yeah, sorry. This is just kind of is a summary of notes from a discussion we had the day before SigStoreCon for people that were there. Just kind of a list of things that it's not fully limited to clients, but things we'd like to see in 2025 for Sigstore community. This includes a lot of client work, but it also includes support for post-quantum, maybe, and like ideas for an attestation store, because we're moving away from being able to store attestations in Recore. We don't really have a strong idea of how TSA support should exist for Sigstore. There's just a list of things in here that if you are interested in taking a look at, maybe you have an idea of something that affects you personally or like your company or your workflows, add them in. If you think something maybe is not that useful, go ahead and comment. We can add it. We can take it out. Then, and maybe next week, Tracy and I are going to organize this and prioritize it and kind of see if there are any owners from the community that, kind of want to lead each specific item.
And I think expectation is just massage it into the format of the roadmap and then have a PR go against that.
Awesome. Thanks for the update, y'all. This looks really great. I'm really excited about all of this work that's coming in. I think this verification policy one's especially very interesting as well, since so much of our work has been on simplifying signing and having signing integrated into many workflows. Now, of course, the next step is what do we do with the signatures, of course, is verify them. So I'm particularly very excited about this one. I'm excited about many of these topics as well. But this is great to see. Awesome. Tracy, I'll hand it over to you then.
Yeah, before I start diving into the nitty-gritty of some comments in a Google Doc, I was just going to ask if anyone else wants to ask anything or cover stuff. Happy to leave this to last. If not, I'm happy to jump in. Actually, so Hayden, if I can get you to just bring up the Google Doc, I'll drop the link. Oh yeah, it's linked there too. And yeah, there's a couple of comments. I just wanted to get into getting some clarity on what was meant by things. And yeah, I'm not able to resolve some of the comments in this doc, so it's a little noisy. But I think the comment by Lily on just off screen at the bottom, it refers to the specific bit about the log may use key material that commits to entry inclusion or entry meta that is not included in the Merkle tree leaf values. Yeah, I could see how that can be read a couple of different ways. So I wanted to just maybe hear like how other ways you could describe that or make sure that's being clear.
Sure. One, I'm going to have to refresh my memory of this doc because this was written maybe a year ago. So I'll attempt to remember all of this. And I will say as well, right, as we go through this, I think a lot of this is relevant to Recore V1 and not necessarily Recore V2. Like this comment is, I think, relevant to both, but it's worth mentioning that I think some of this we don't need to, I think, spend too much time fleshing it out if ultimately we're going to need to rework the spec on top of Recore V2. But I'll try to address some of these comments. So this one, I think all this was trying to refer to here is that the log has a key, and I think it's actually a little inaccurate to say here. It's not really may. So the log has a key, and that key is used to sign checkpoints, or used to sign. I don't remember what we referred to it in here as. Let me just make sure. It's used to sign the sign entry timestamp.
Yeah.
So I think that can be reworked to just be a little more explicit here.
Okay.
And I'll mention as well, right, with this doc, there was this balance between try to make this as generic as possible, that this could generically describe a form of signature transparency and something specific to how Sigstore uses it. So that's another thing to keep in mind as we go through the language of this doc, that we probably need to just pick one, or I mean, honestly, both there is value in, but I would love to see this be a bit more generic.
Yeah, and I think that line was a little confusing.
Yeah.
Whichever way you read it, so I can put some clarifications. And then the next sentence, it starts with the service must not be relied upon for storage of signing events. It does sound a little strong, like if you read Luke's comments, it can be relied upon for later retrieval. So I think people could interpret the relied upon in different ways. So I wanted to tweak that a little, but maybe again, just go back to the original sentiment. Was it more about saying there's no implicit trust with the contents? Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So the motivation here is the contents of the log should not be trusted to be provided by the log. So you should be there. The log should be, and I know witness is a little bit overloaded here within the space, but the log should be recording an event has occurred, and the proof that comes back to the log is that log's commitment that it has seen that event. And so I think the point here is the log shouldn't be used as like a, specifically within Recore, like a search index, or it should not be queried to say, given this artifact hash, what are the events where a signature has happened?
Right.
Because that would be trusting that the log is providing that without a way to actually audit that.
Okay.
So that's the point here. And I think Colleen actually said this once that I liked, which is zero trust transparency. Effectively, that is the goal of a transparency system.
Yeah. Okay. And I think if we move away from that relied, which I think people associate with reliability, I think that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We if that's overloaded, we can remove that. And I think, this whole paragraph here, this is, I think, very, very important with designing a transparency system, but it does assume a lot of knowledge of what are the goals of transparency. So we could probably flesh this out into a larger discussion on what are the design choices and the motivations here. And this is again, I think, a topic that's particularly relevant for Recore V2, that we are trying to be very, very explicit about what is possible to do in V2 versus what is a dedicated service, where the caller can make an explicit trust decision on they trust this search index or they trust this attestation store to provide this data, rather than couple that to the log.
Okay. And just on that last part, so yeah, I can flesh it out, and I guess we do want to connect this doc to Recore V2, even if it's just at the end. But is there anything more to add into that doc, or when you say we want to have more of that conversation, is that just putting it out in this document, or did you have something else in mind?
I think my only point was that, like, this doc, a lot of the terminology in this is built around Recore V1. So I think, I mean, again, I'm happy that we can make a pass through and update a lot of these comments. I think a lot of the comments that Lily made are very much still relevant to Recore V1. I think we'll just have to kind of decide when we create that bridge over to Recore V2, and if we want to rework what we propose for Recore V2 into a spec like this. Again, I think there's parts of this, maybe one way to separate this out is we should have a section that is a general representation of signature transparency, which should be both applicable to Recore V1 or Recore V2.
Yep.
And then something that is terminology specific to Recore V1 as well as the APIs of Recore V1. We can then have a bridge of these are the decisions that we made to motivate Recore V2, and then a specification section specific to Recore V2 as well.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because at the highest level, they should look the same description-wise for Recore and Recore V2. So that makes sense to me. Okay, and yeah, and is it worth going, I know I'll be going through the terminology just to see it's consistent. And a lot of the remaining comments in this doc are actually just comments to make sure that the terminology is consistent, which there's a plan to do, and I can do that with this view of a glossary in mind. Is that something, are we carrying a lot of these terms through to Recore V2, or will that only come into effect once you've got the more detailed design doc in place?
So a lot of the confusing terms came about because of how we chose to do sharding, that we had this abstraction layer that sits in front of multiple trees within Recore. That's why we have these entry ID versus entry UUID. A lot of that goes away in Recore V2 because we will have a new log stood up for each shard, and we will remove this abstraction layer because we don't expect people to be calling into the log and looking up by an entry hash. So some of this is still relevant and some of this isn't. So again, maybe we can go through this offline and just mark what is and what isn't. Log ID is still relevant. Log index is still relevant. These two definitions definitely change because of how UUIDs change. Proofs are the same, consistency proofs are the same. Signed entry timestamps. This is one of, I think, the larger changes that we're proposing making, which is, again, with the goal of Recore V2 not being trusted for providing contents. It would not provide the timestamp. The timestamp would come from a timestamp authority. So this concept changes. I mean, the concept of a shard is still true, but again, we don't have global log indices. So really, I think the biggest change here is whatever is relevant to this shard abstraction would go away in V2.
Okay.
I'll also mention a couple of these terms, like UUID, I think is coming, or leaf hash and UUID, some of these terms, they're still relevant, but I think they are coming partly from the certificate transparency spec. So I would say we shouldn't necessarily reuse terms from RFC 6962, which is the CT spec. So yeah, I think really it's entry UID, entry ID, signed entry timestamp, and global log index are probably the ones that are not relevant.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think happy to leave it there based on that. I think that's enough for me to just go through, address a lot of the comments in the bug, and then yeah, I can ping on anything else that isn't clear. That probably works to do asynchronously. But yeah, no, this was useful just to get a high level overview into some of those.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then yeah, let me know if I can provide any more information.
Yeah, and if anyone else on the call is kind of looking at this doc, yeah, any additional comments are still welcome, either here or directly on the PR, and anything that doesn't read clearly, or you're looking at it and going, oh, I thought I knew how Rico works and this doesn't make sense. Yeah, just give me a shout, because I'll be trying to get as much clarity around things here as possible. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just added another point to the agenda. It's about observability in Sigstore, and I thought this could be a great addition, maybe for the roadmap, as a maybe smaller point. I don't know yet. So I looked into what we have in place now, and I saw that there are some metrics with the Prometheus endpoint, and I saw that with the Open API toolkit, we have some minimal set of trace instrumentation. But yeah, I thought maybe this could be nice to extend it, and we could see every trace in Sigstore, which is important. Yeah, so add it to Fulcio and maybe Record as well.
Yeah, if you'd be able to leave a comment about that in the roadmap doc, I think that would be a useful addition to review what we've got and figure out opportunities to add that.
Yep.
I know being on call, we would most certainly appreciate more of that, and I think as well as is particularly critical for more private operators. Hopefully, having more log operators next year as well. So that sounds great.
Yeah, nice, will do.
Alrighty. Was there anything else anyone wanted to discuss? All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great rest of the year. See you all in the new year.
Yeah, thanks. See you.